one just came in just a minute ago. So just let you know that, to make sure you take a look at those, but we'll not be reading them tonight.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. We will do that. There was one that came in shortly before the meeting, and I know
There's two.
Okay, got it. All righty then, moving on to approval of the Tom McDonald commemorative resolution number 935. Typically, I would read the resolution, but we will enter it into the record. Mr. McDonald is not here this evening, so rather than read this, I think that makes more sense. I entertain a motion to approve retirement commemoration resolution number 935 for Tom McDonald as presented.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Bain,
Second.
Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and this would be the discussion time. Does anyone want to make any public comments at this time?
Actually, we would, yes. Chris,
Okay.
you want to go first?
Yeah, I just wanted to, stay on the record. I mean, I know Tom wasn't able to join us tonight. What an unbelievable impact he had on the Park District in his time here, and how, through his approach and all the different areas that he oversaw over the years between, our former plant sale at the greenhouse and conservation efforts through the community. And really, he has a very outsized impact, and there's going to be people that are sitting under a tree in 100 years because of Tom McDonald's work in the last 15 or 20. So he really has made a huge impact on the Park District in a way that, isn't necessarily immediately visible to folks, in the sense that, managing the trees and really helping us to kind of bridge over the Dutch elm issues and the emerald ash borer, and, the loss of our, historical oak population due to climate change. I mean, Tom has really been there from the beginning in helping the Park District to have an above average quality tree canopy. So I just wanted to note that to the board tonight. Thank you.
In addition to that, he's been a great resource for the Friends of the Green Bay Trail throughout the years, and actually assisting homeowners in a lot of their needs too. He was never, people went up to him and asked him questions. He was always polite and was willing to help them. So he definitely will be missed on our team. So we wish him a very happy retirement.
Tom was Google before there was Google when it came to plants.
It's true. Definitely was.
And didn't he work, didn't you lend his services to the village when there were tree issues?
We did. I mean, we frequently partnered together. I mean, Tom was a little bit more on the exotic side as far as pest control and funguses and things like that, where the village would assist us on the larger removal. So definitely a team effort there. And, we're excited to kind of, give some other staff some opportunities in that area going forward. But Tom is going to be absolutely missed, and his outsized presence here is going to be felt for a generation for sure.
Very, very nice comments. Does anyone have anything else to add?
I would just add something briefly. Before I was on the board, I would see him periodically in Cock Park or in Veterans Park, and had occasional conversations with him, but he was always focused on his work. He knew everything about the parks. He was I could tell he was just very, very informed, and they were his parks. I mean, he took care of them like they were his own. So I always had a very high regard for him.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Bart, for those kind words. Very good. So I presume he is retiring, and I certainly wish him all the best on behalf of the board, and that he has a great retirement under the trees. So thank you. Well, let's see here. We will then have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Bourne?
Yes.
Commissioner Kobe?
Yes.
Commissioner Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Spain?
Yes.
President Brooks?
Yes, motion passes. Okay, we are going to move on to a presentation on the GJHP stipend request. I'm going to remind the board that this is simply a presentation. It is not an action item. We will not be voting on this now or ever. If in future discussion, which will not be now, but will be at another meeting or another time, if we reach some kind of consensus about this, it would simply be on a consensus basis moved to the budget. But until then, this evening, they're going to make their presentation, I'm sure follows the packet that we had. And there'll be some time afterwards to ask questions if something was not answered during the course of this presentation. And then when we have our discussion, if there still are any additional questions, I'm sure we can submit them at that time. So I will move on now to introducing Shelley Pentelik, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, the GJHP Board President, Nancy Fidel, GJHP Board Treasurer, and Michelle Rosenthal, their Senior Program Director, who will give a presentation. Thank you. Go ahead, ladies.
Great. Well, thank you for having us here tonight. I wanted to start by saying that Nancy Fidel is actually still at work cutting meetings. So she was unable to join us. She is our treasurer, but Michelle and I should be able to address any questions that you have specific to her. So first off, thank you for having us. Thank you for your continued support of the Glencoe Junior High project, and thank you for your consideration for a stipend. GJHP, we've been a part of Glencoe for 49 years now. Our mission is to serve Glencoe students in grades 5th through 8th. And to create socially aware, civic-minded, community-oriented individuals. We have 4 key areas of programming, and I should say that majority of the students that we serve attend Glencoe Public Schools. However, though, there are handfuls of students who attend other schools and are Glencoe residents who are also within our community. We have 4 key areas of programming. Performing arts, where we typically have an annual musical, and then some smaller performing arts programs throughout the year. We have social and community activities where we actually partner with you for many of those. Skate nights, movie nights, social events, so different opportunities for the students to engage socially, as well as to engage with the community. All of our programs are open and inclusive to everyone. So nobody is left out, and we are inclusive of all. And then we have civic engagement opportunities, which is really an area that we've been trying to build and grow. And through our new senior program director, who's with us tonight, Michelle Rosenthal, she's done an excellent job of helping us grow that program. With civic engagement, we bring kids out into the community for various civic engagement events and activities, such as food drives. They also have events at our location where they're participating in a civic engagement event for another organization. We have, I should say, we've gone through a lot of change in the last few years, predominantly as a result of COVID. We had to change 100% of our programming, and we really realized that there was a need for more civic engagement and more engaging programming. And since that time, we've really been working and striving to achieve that. We had some restructuring that took place, and we hired a new senior program director. And I think we laid this out in the document, so I won't get into it too much. But what I will say is we're incredibly fortunate to have Michelle on our team. She brings over 30 years of experience teaching in the Chicago Public Schools District in Highland Park. She's a member of the Highland Park community and has raised 5 children, and very familiar with Glencoe, very familiar with our programs, our partners. So she has really helped bring a tremendous value to the organization and really helped us grow and expand our civic engagement. And with all of that, with the restructuring and the changes that we have implemented, our board reflected on the future of our organization and our intent. And what we realized is that obviously our operating expenses are increasing significantly as we now are employing more professional, more seasoned staff, as opposed to more junior staff that we traditionally employed prior to COVID. And as a result, we're asking the Park District this year for $15,000 in the stipend instead of the traditional 10, which we had previously asked for. So I think there was a lot of detail with respect to specific programs and events to give you a flavor for what we do. So I don't want to spend a lot of time there, but I would ask if you have questions for us, or Michelle, if you have anything that you would like to add that I missed, we would love to answer and address any questions that you might have.
I would say we've been working really hard to partner up with other organizations in the community, and particularly the Park District. I've been working with Nate and just, thinking ahead about some of the events and ways that we can support each other. So we've done this with skate nights. We're going to continue doing stuff like a Frisbee golf tournament, making use of the resources. Like to have some sort of, looking to next year, maybe have some sort of overlap in programming, or run some sort of after school things in the Oasis, where we maybe bring in some of the people who do run some of the Park District classes for one-time workshops. Those are some things we've been thinking about. Nate and I, we talked about running some sort of an internship summer program where we work with the nonprofits that we partner with and see if there's opportunities for students to learn more about working in the service profession. So he talked about maybe having students help out, see what it's like in the events planning side, but there's also other sides in which possibly we'd like to have students who are interested maybe shadow people in the field, whether it's in the parks and recreation, or whether it's in city planning. These are just some thoughts that we've had going on, but we've been working really hard to partner up with New Trier Township with events like the food bank, working with Glencoe Youth Services. Also thinking ahead too, I ended up seeing the production of Beauty and the Beast, which was wonderful this weekend, trying to figure out how we can support each other a little bit more in performing arts, or at least just bring a group of kids over to see the productions, make each other aware of what's going on with a lot of the same students. So those are just some of the thoughts of ways that we would like to work together.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Are there any questions that you have while these representatives are here that were not answered in the packet or in this presentation? Okay. All right. If that is what I think it is, I will say thank you so much. Thanks for the detailed report you gave us and allowed us to read through this. Thank you so much for attending this evening. And you're certainly welcome to sit through the rest of the meeting, but we understand if you choose not to. So very good. Until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The board is going to take their application into consideration when directing staff to include a stipend amount. Our executive director, Lisa Shepherd, will let you know what the decision is when we make it. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have quite a lot on here. We're going to move to our discussion regarding selling park property, district property, 310 South Avenue, PIN number 050740200188. Excuse me, correction, 0180000. Lisa Shepherd and Chris Leiner will lead that discussion.
Great. Just so a reminder, I'm going to let Chris explain all the items in here, but this will be the second time we presented this to the board. And we're asking for a decision at the February board meeting. We did notify all the neighbors associated with Nexus property by both a signboard with a link. They can get all the information on our website, and letters to all the direct neighbors. We had now 3 emails sent on the subject. I had forwarded them all to the board. So Chris, you want to give a little recap of this?
Yes, just to briefly recap what we previously discussed, the district was approached 2 years ago about a small abandoned alley that occupies 1,650 square feet at the south side of the park located at South and Green Bay. While the park does have an address of 310 South Avenue, the parcel does not have any South Avenue frontage. It faces Green Bay Road. As the board can see, we have the legal survey here. We had a pretty significant discussion about the fact that, the board is typically not in the business of selling property. But this particular parcel effectively functions as a tax exempt residential backyard. So you can see from the survey that the 3 properties adjacent to that. So again, as Lisa indicated, this will be the second time that this has been discussed in open session. And we are, recommending that the board decide to move forward with this at the next meeting or choose not to based on their input. So any particular questions about the parcel or the process?
There is, in your board packet, there is a sketch of the property.
We know anything about the folks that spoke today? I know one of them was a realtor that had a, one of them was a realtor that spoke, that sent us a note earlier with this. Do we know if that's the realtor involved, or is that just a random
Yeah,
citizen?
no, I think that's a resident. They don't have any realtor involved that we have spoken to at all. Nor do we know if there's any intention to do anything with it. So,
One of the, but you know what I'm talking about? One of the.
yeah, one
comments?
of the public comments, I think that was a resident.
Oh, that was a resident in the
Making a
resident
comment.
capacity, not in the realtor capacity.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I drove by, saw that sign several times. So I feel like we gave the neighbors good notice. It's good to see that there was positive feedback about it. So that's unusual. So that was kind of nice to see. So I don't have any issues with moving forward with this.
Anything else from any other commissioner regarding this issue? Okay, I think the consensus that we had during the last discussion holds. And you have what you need now, right, Lisa?
Sure. I don't know if you want to open it because I see a couple new people that weren't at Matters of Public. I don't know if you wanted to open up for brief comments from anybody on 3 minutes.
Okay.
If there was, I see.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not sure if
So
anybody
the
wants to speak onto
the
this.
direction holds. If any, I'll do it one more time. Typically comments are at the front end of the meeting, but it's our practice not to address questions. You can make comments, but please limit them to 3 minutes. Does anyone who has jumped on after the meeting began, do you have comments now? Okay.
Great.
Okay, that is good. I'm glad I gave you a chance, and thank you for joining. And that's it for the discussion of that property, and we will move to the financial report. 10 months of the fiscal year is complete. John Cutero will now provide a synopsis of the report. Thank you, John.
Thank you, President Brooks. Good evening, everybody. So really have 2 months of activity here in the financial report tonight, November and December. I will focus primarily on the December financial amounts, which can be found on page 84 of 138 of your board packet. So again, just looking at the December financials, one major thing to point out here is that these are cash basis numbers, so they haven't been adjusted to accrual basis, which would be done by booking deferred revenue. That deferred revenue is typically booked at fiscal year end. And I bring that up because as we look at the rec programs here, a majority of what you see there, almost a little over $1 million in revenue for the month of December, a majority of that revenue will ultimately be booked to deferred revenue, and that revenue then is ultimately recognized in fiscal 23. Nonetheless, though, we still get a pretty clear apples to apples comparison on a cash basis, at least when we look at our rec program revenue, when that's compared to, of course, the pre-pandemic levels of 12/31/19 and 12/31/18. Not a whole lot to speak to from an expense perspective as it relates to the rec programs. But as we look at the daycare department, so that continues to look very good year to date. We've now collected the entire childcare restoration grant revenue, which came in early November. So again, now we'll have a more of an apples to apples comparison of the top line revenue, because we had about 170 something thousand in grant revenue in the prior year number too. You'll also notice that in the December financials for the daycare, there was actually a slight deficit, which is unusual to see. And that's due primarily to the fact that there were 3 pay periods in the month of December, which is obviously only happens twice a year based on our pay cycle. The daycare numbers do not reflect another grant that's been awarded to us. That was awarded to us at the end of November. It's the Child Care Workforce Bonus Grant. We're still unsure as to when the timing of that grant funding will come in, kind of at the mercy of the state in terms of when that's coming in. So it could be in fiscal year 22 or ultimately after our fiscal year end at the end of February. As we take a look at the fitness department, it continues to be better than the 2 previous years, showing a slight profit here at the end of December. Beach and boating, not a whole lot to speak to here. Obviously, the revenue is pretty much recognized for the rest of the fiscal year. But as I mentioned in previous meetings, overall, the beach and boating department are doing much better than budgeted. And we'll look to finish up strong here with these remaining expenditures being recognized. Watts, we're obviously right in the middle of our season there. And we see that we are showing a profit here at the end of December. A big piece of that, though, is of that revenue is past revenue, which will probably dry up a bit as we get into January and February. That being said, though, Watts is still looking really good compared to what was budgeted. We're expecting a deficit of around $55,000 at the end of the fiscal year on an accrual basis, and that'll be a pretty big improvement from where we were at pre-pandemic deficit levels. Obviously, last year was an anomaly where we looked much better with the COVID considerations too. In the DNA department, mainly salary and insurance expense for this month. Not much to speak to. There were 2 months of health insurance expenses in there, which is why it's a little higher, just a matter of the timing of the invoices there and payments. Parks department had a pretty quiet month from an expenditure standpoint too. Salaries and G&A made up most of the $135,000 of December expenditures. Same goes for the rec admin TIF department. Again, a pretty quiet month from an expenditure perspective, mainly G&A and salaries. And again, just a reminder that we did not make the Fund 69 transfer this year, yet at least. So, factoring in that $850,000 from the prior year would put that bottom line almost right about the same amount actually as prior year. So pretty consistent from that perspective. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Hey, John, I just have one. It's an administrative sort of detail. Back on page 33 to 37, there's a center column, and there's a lot of room there. It could be wider, but it doesn't. The titles aren't long enough for me to read all of them. So I didn't know if in the future you could widen that column that's on pages 33 to 37.
Sure, Bart. Yeah, I see what you're referring to in the report summary there on the vendor list of bills. Okay. So we could certainly take a look at that and try to get those columns better aligned.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
I have 2 questions for you. Well, one is a comment. I firmly believe that the fitness department's doing well because you got a second Peloton. There's no doubt in my mind that that's driving people there. But that was a tongue-in-cheek comment. The actual real question I have for you is about daycare. I am having a hard time understanding how daycare is, and I see we have $150,000 grant in there. But if I look at the expenses as of December of 2019, they're $150,000 less than what they are for December of 2021. And maybe this is something you could maybe know off the top of your head, or maybe you can research. But we've had an increase in population, and we've had an increase in expenses due to salary retention. I know that the kitchen expenses haven't quite hit yet. It just seems to me like the costs are not going up as much as I would have thought. And I'm kind of surprised to see the profit margin on this climbing. If you take out the $150,000 grant, it's still a pretty big profit maker for us. What's going on there? Why is the margin going up on this?
I'd probably pass it over to Bobby. I think I have an idea, but Bobby would probably be able to answer that best.
So there's one item that we made a change 2 years ago, which was employee discounts, which originally came out of there. But to be more transparent, we moved all of the employee discounts under one line item. So that would have, there was quite a significant line item there that came out of it. The other thing I will note is we have been significantly short on staff for the last year and a half. So we're substituting full-time staff in there. We've consistently been below what we would like to staff at. So that is making up a large portion of those savings.
You'd call that a six-figure savings, Bobby?
There's also have to consider health insurance. So if we have one employee who changes from family coverage to no coverage as we've had turnover, that can be a $30,000 swing as well.
Okay.
So there is things that skew that. We'll say it's probably a six-figure employee discount. I think it is almost a six-figure discount.
Okay. Got it. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for, I love having our employees have kids there. I think it attracts great talent, and I think it also it keeps our teachers on their toes a little bit. So I love having the kids in there. Thank you for sharing the accounting adjustment.
It's
I guess I have a
important.
follow-up.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead, Carol. Go ahead.
Just a follow-up question on that. So it sounds like from what you're saying that this isn't the new normal for what we're expecting for the
Definitely
daycare.
not.
And I was wondering what we're planning to do with that. Is that, are we setting aside any surplus for contingencies in the future, or what happens to that?
That's a good question.
It's really important to note also that that's not taking into account some of our indirect expenses. So while it looks like there's a profit, that is not necessarily the case. So there's indirect expenses such as building and insurance and things like that. Insurance comes out of there that aren't accounted for that. But then anything above that goes into our capital projects light item, or it goes into our fund balances, but then gets transferred over. So that's how we paid for the playground. That's how we pay for all the new equipment and things like that, those larger ticket items. Do you agree, Bobby and John?
What's been done historically is the indirect cost allocation has been set at a certain percentage, but then capped at a certain amount. So that is correct. While there is some being allocated, it's capped to what at a certain amount. So it's not truly capturing what that full indirect cost allocation would be.
So if I understand correctly, some of it gets transferred for other reserve purposes. Does it all go back to daycare, or does some of it go to support the broader park district? I understand that you're supporting, there's probably allocations to support what you said, what's done in other funds, but.
Yeah, what's been done in the past is any surplus within the recreation fund has been transferred over to the master plan capital project fund, Fund 69, and has funded, things like the playground that Lisa had alluded to, but ultimately the master plan for capital projects within the district.
It also was worth noting, John, IMRF, Social Security, Medicare is out of a different fund, so that doesn't
Correct.
come out of Children's Circle.
Correct.
But that's also why, like last year, Carol, or maybe it was 2 years already, when we built the new playground at Takeoff, that was a very sizable expense. But because so much money from the daycare goes back in, it really was more self-funded. So the teachers had a big say on what equipment goes there. And it, maybe something the board wouldn't have voted for if that money wasn't there. So it really does still go towards the preschool. And like the new indoor gym was funded through that same fund as well. And all
really
the equipment and
the walking
walking
trail
trail.
additional around Takeoff, that's been used heavily. It's very nice for our daycare also.
On a just kind of an average basis, it's probably $2 to $3 million in capital improvements that have been made to the Takeoff Center that directly impact this program in the last 5 years. So $1 million playground, $500,000 roof, $300,000 or $400,000 worth of parking lots, the walking path. I mean, they're all directly correlated to the success of this program, but they're also used by the program. So
I still, Carol, just as somebody who thinks that every product has costs allocated to it, it was a big struggle for me to come to this world where it's like, wait, why don't you just allocate, part of take it overhead to daycare or the trail to daycare or the park, and it's just not how it's done. But I'm on your, I think our minds think alike, where it's like, wait, where's coming? Because otherwise, the way to think about it is the playground is free for daycare, and it's really not, but it's just not accounted for that way.
I mean, you look at the $400,000 worth of rooftop units that we're going to do in the last 24 months that directly benefit this area in the building. I mean, it's Children's Circle Wing, the multipurpose wing. I mean, those are directly correlated to the operation of the program.
In our world, in the private sector, the product would there would be an overhead cost associated with it allocated to the product.
Right, and depreciation, et cetera. Okay.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if we're talking $2.2 million going into the take-up in the playgrounds and the roof and the building, the walking path, the early childhood center has not generated that much revenue to offset it. So taxpayers are still offsetting the program.
And going forward, I think it's safe to say, as the picture of employee compensation in this field changes, that kind of movement of additional revenue will diminish over, in the next, as we readjust to the realities of staffing.
Lisa, that is absolutely correct.
I think it's this picture is short term.
Yep.
Yeah, I will say I had to ask Bobby something about a piece of gym equipment, and they said he's not in his office. He's at the daycare being a teacher for the week. So I can attest to noting that Bobby is probably wearing many hats.
Enjoying my experience. I'm learning a lot of new kids' names, and I'm enjoying the experience.
I hear you're a master at Carline.
They don't want to lose him, put it that way, when we hire the new position. So
excellent questions. And I don't always say that. Those were excellent questions. Does anyone have anything else on this matter?
Do you think Watts is going to continue? How do you allocate Watts's revenue? Is it the season passes? Do you allocate them to each month, or do you just take it all when you sell them?
Yeah, it's all cash basis. So that's why we're seeing, what we're seeing now is obviously a lot of that revenue comes in up front, and that'll trickle off then with the next 2 months.
So you'll see Watts probably go in the red, I imagine.
It's going to go in the red, but it's going to be a much smaller deficit than has historically been the case at pre-pandemic levels.
Got it. Well, we're still in a pandemic, so.
Okay, then we will move on now to the executive director report. Again, Lisa Shepherd will review the items in her report.
all right, so a big thank you to Bobby, who's leading, and Lauren, who's not on this call, leading the migration for RecTrack. So that has been going on all this week and is still going on. And I see Jill's here, and big thank you to the business services team, front desk team, rec team. This was a big team project to make this happen. A lot of work behind the scenes. So kudos to all of them. And while the migration is still going on, we hope that concludes soon. And then with that, then we're going to go into the website upgrade. Now, Erin, I don't know if I want to speak on that really quick.
Absolutely. So we're really close to having a test site for you guys to kind of play with and try it out. Not there yet, but I'm hoping in the next week or two to send you guys something to give us some feedback on. So stay tuned. It's going to happen really fast. Everything's happening. It's been building. It's all going to just come together really fast. So stay tuned.
Seems like it's a slow process, but so much work behind the scenes has to go into this. So this is one of our big projects for this year.
For anyone at any company that's done a migration of this size, I can assure you, well aware of how much work goes into it, how much testing goes, like implementation, and then testing, and then more testing, and then more testing, and
yep.
I'm excited to see it. So thank you, those who are working on it. I know it's not easy.
And this last push for testing where you're navigating through the site and taking notes and it is really critical. So anyone who can carve out a little bit of time and participate and help out, just from my own work experience, it's really invaluable. And Erin, thank you for posting that social media message that said, please excuse us, we're in the middle of this, be patient. That's always a good reminder for people.
Yeah, we're going to keep posting that this week while the registration is down. We have something going up every day. We don't have a lot of registration right now. That's why we're doing it right now.
Yep.
But our next brochure will go out in mid-February, and we hope for that registration in March, that everything is smooth, the website, the registration, everything will be ready to go for that March
I was
10th.
happy I didn't have to check in at the gym today.
Yeah, it's free.
Free, so it'll be this week. So kudos to them. They're doing a wonderful job. We did put in here in the report, we would like to keep the beach pass pricing same status as last year and in line with our neighbors to the south of us. So we're recommending not doing an increase of any fees this year. We did a big one last year. But we are doing an increase, 3% increase for resident boaters and 6% to non-resident boaters, trying to get it in line with our goals of what those fees should be. So we're slowly raising those every year. So those are the changes we're making for our beach passes. Does anybody want any discussion on that? It was very successful last year and was, we're going to line at that. Perfect. Thank you. I'll really quickly go over this. Children's Circle, we are still.
I'm sorry, can I ask you a question about that? So I see that the non-resident passes are the same. We're at a really peak point with the pandemic. Is it understood that we will just allow non-residents to come and get in with a so we'll let the beach open to non-residents if they want to buy the pass, no matter where the pandemic is?
Yes, we did that last year. And obviously during the weekends, they have to have a season pass to get in.
Okay.
And we did not have problems with overcrowding at all last year. So we were able to manage it very well. We always have to let, because of the grants we've taken in the past, non-residents buy, but residents get the first option, and then we open up to non-residents. So we'll continue to do that.
Is there a limit on total?
We did not have to limit it last year, and we still had no problem with overcrowding.
Okay.
Correct,
And that
Bobby?
would be the same, maybe Omicron is in decline, but it seems like it's much more contagious. So if it were still around, would we allow less crowding than past year, or?
We would have to watch the data. As you know, outside transmission is very low. It's more inside transmission that they're worried about. So like with everything in the pandemic, we'll keep on watching the data and make decisions closer to that time. If it turns out there is an outbreak, we'll do things just like we did for our programs, put them on pause or put mitigation things in place at that time. But as of right now, we had no overcrowding at all. Residents, when people buy passes, they tend to go down there only for a couple hours and then they leave. So even if we have a large pass number, we still haven't seen overcrowded. So they come for a couple hours, they leave. Where when people come with dailies, they tend to buy their daily and stay there all day. So we're still recommending the same thing as last year, where season passes are only allowed on weekends, whether that's resident or non-resident, and dailies during the week.
We did see in the heights of the pandemic in 2020, an average of 9 visits per pass holder, dropping down to 3 last year. So I would say that should probably continue that trend of about 3 to 5 visits per pass holder.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the final point is like I'm thinking of another point on the agenda, which is affiliate relations with Northbrook or exchanges, and that was suspended 2 years ago, I guess, and it's related, so I'll mention it now in light of the pandemic, and it looks like at the point that was suspended, there were maybe the peak in the spring that year was like 2,500 new cases per day in Illinois, and we're about 11 and a half times that right now. So yeah, I want.
That was also prior to the vaccine and things
Yeah.
like that. So
And I think Bart, there's two things that are different now between when the pandemic first came out. One of which is there's a vaccine. Two of which is that it wasn't until after last summer that we learned that I think transmission outside is fairly limited. And so even Illinois doesn't have mask rules outside. The kids at recess go outside without masks. And I think that sort of got me over the hump. The other thing to think about is if you really want to, we don't know what the future holds. But I think all signs are pointing to at least this round coming to an end in the next few weeks, or at least, coming down significantly. But I don't know how comfortable I feel about presupposing what the summer is going to look like. Thinking the summer is going to be any more or less different than sort of last summer.
Right. Yeah. Just I guess, and my point, and then I'll let it go, is the numbers are really high right now, and we've had 4 different variants, and I guess, and I take a lot of comfort from the point that outside it doesn't seem to transmit much at all. It's much more, much more inside. But it just, we're at a real peak, and it seems this might not be the time to make decisions or loosen it. But I hear your side as well. It's still a serious issue, and we're at a peak point in the pandemic. So I just want to make sure that we're not being too loose in, letting people onto the beach. But again, I hear you, and I appreciate your experience before, where pass holders were coming a lot less, so you didn't get the crowd in.
or staying for shorter times, and passes go on sale, March, when the brochure comes out. We always see, last year we saw an increase in December also, right after vacations and things like that. And then it settled down afterwards. So we'll just keep an eye on it like we do for everything, and watch what the recommendations are.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
So go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, so we're still experiencing shortage in children's circle teachers. As Bobby already mentioned, we're putting full-time staff when needed into those programs. We do have contingency plans should we fall below required amounts, and we would activate those if we need it. But we're still trying every avenue to hire teachers, and just like you see in other industries, we are equally having that hard time. So we're doing all that we can, but just want to make you aware of that. As Bobby and Chris alluded to, Watts Center is doing very well. Everybody's having a great experience. The weather has been very conducive to a successful outdoor ice season, not a lot of snow. The staff is doing a marvelous job out there. We had a very successful event yesterday, Watts Below Zero. So successful. This is what, our 5th year of doing this one. And we added more amenities, and we had a lot of lines. We had a lot of people attend that event, which is a good thing. Just like as we grow any event, we'll look at what we can do next year, as far as what we can do about lines and things like that to make the experience a little less, I guess, frustrating for people. Even though most people weren't, they understand that, when you have an event of this size. We also think this is one of the few avenues of outside entertainment which people wanted to do because of the pandemic. But kudos to Bobby and Nate and the whole team for all the creative activities they had that really brought people out. And Aaron's very good marketing of this event. We were getting tons of calls that day. So the weather was just all the stars aligned on that. But again, we'll keep on looking at how we can spread that out or space out the people in the future as we continue to grow that event. So,
Lisa, I did look at all the social media postings about it, and I sent my children to Children's Circle that day, but it really made me wish I had pulled them out. It looked amazing. Those bumper cars on the ice and the horse-drawn carriage, that's so special and magic. Like, I've just never seen that at an event, in one of these communities before. So I really hope you do it next year, because we'll participate.
Oh, yeah, we will definitely
Those-
do it again next year. Yeah,
Those pictures were great. Can't wait to go.
good. We love that feedback.
I went and I loved it. And I actually love that my kid went and I didn't have to watch him that much.
Oh, that's nice.
I was
Right.
there with the girls and he already addressed my comments, you know, a few too many non-residents, actually a lot of non-residents, because it's a
Mm.
free event and people hear about it. And
Oh.
so I know I talked to staff there as well about addressing that next year. You know, is it just for pass holders? Is it pass holders and residents can get a, you know, a card or a wristband or something to alleviate. And of course, everyone wants to do the two special things. So that's why lines became an issue. And you can't go inside because of the pandemic, so it's harder to maneuver. So that
Yeah,
could be different next year.
We have to be careful about not excluding non-residents because we did accept a $2 million park grant for this. So we have to allow non-residents to go. So if we charge nothing for residents, we can only charge nothing for non-residents. If we charge $2 for residents, then it could be $4. So we'll look at ways of and I don't know if I necessarily want to just do it for pass holders for this big event that's always been like a community event, but we're going to look at ways we can spread it out and make it, you know, maybe sign up for time slots. Like if we have a 10, 11, 12, and the families come at those times, maybe we'll make the lines go down a little bit better or a little less. So, but you're right. It was the really big ones like the bumpers and the horseback riding that was extremely popular. So.
Did we market it widely outside of the community?
Erin?
Social media blasts, but we also have a lot of pass holders now in our database that aren't just residents.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So if
Okay.
they share it with their friends or, you know, like, there's not a lot of park districts have a winter carnival like this or a festival. Not as cool as attractions, I have to say, but they have them on the weekends. And so we do ours on a school day off on Monday. And I think that brings a lot of people in because there's not a lot to do on that day for a school off. So it makes it more special. So, but we'll look at those items as we go forward.
I think the pictures sold it.
The picture sold it without a doubt. It was incredible. So I know, you know, and for Platesville parking, it was a beautiful walk. It was a beautiful day. I walked over a mile. I had it on my wrist. I knew how long I walked. So, but you had to walk through the pretty park mostly in neighborhoods. So it wasn't a bad thing. So, okay. I'm not going to go over that, but I'm just going to highlight. Pardon me?
Just a quick question, and I know my dog was barking, apologies. I get that we can't sell tickets to the event. And Stephanie, I didn't even think about that, so great idea. Can we sell tickets to parts of it? Like, could we have sold tickets to the bumper cars and sold tickets to the horse carriage and let like the skating be free? Is that something we're allowed to do?
Yeah, and that's the things we're going to look at, things
Okay.
like that. We are going to look at that. And if, you know, maybe putting a little surcharge on some of the activities that are extremely expensive and extremely popular, because one of our issues is if we extend the day to have it from 2 hours to 4 hours, it becomes very expensive. So that might be an option to extend it by doing a small fee, not trying to gouge anybody, but you know, so that's something we're looking at too.
Gallagher
All right.
Way offer those bumper cars right now, Michael, at $15 for 2 minutes.
What'd you say?
The Gallagher Way next to Wrigley Field offers ice bumper cars for $15 for 2 minutes. per person.
Man,
Yeah, that's gouging people, that's for sure.
Oh,
Wow.
that's
that's really gouging, but I definitely think next time we need to have a commissioners versus board bumper car session.
I want to do it for a staff
Heads off and we're
party.
getting on. Yeah, I like that, Michael.
The
Remember that-
holiday appreciation
remember that.
party next year. Do that one. That'd be fun. I just want you to note the appendix, especially the green team is in here. They've been doing a lot of work, and I just want to take note to their efforts. And I believe Matt's on the call, and he's our team leader for the green team initiatives. So they've been, you know, working through and looking at ways that we can be more sustainable, more green, and work towards different solutions. So hope you take the time to look that over, and if you have any questions for future please let us know. But, we've done things like the No Idle program in connection with the whole village. We had a great Earth Day cleanup day this year. The honeybee habitat, we've had that for 3 years, but we added a big educational proponent to it, which is just great for our both children's circles, ELCs, and our camps. They have to learn a lot about bees and how important they are to our ecosystem. And they're evaluating electric charging stations, green new lighting, little things that make a big impact, but maybe people don't notice. So kudos to Matt and the whole green team, which is, they're all volunteers on our staff that serve on those committees. So we appreciate that. I would also like to note in the Appendix C, we highlighted the accomplishments for the year, and it happens to be about 5 pages long this year. So kudos to the entire team in working towards our goal, even in midst of a pandemic. So, things I wanted to emphasize just really quick is that how amazing our team is at pivoting and hitting a moving target continually this year with its ever-changing COVID. It's not as easy as you think, and always being ready to change. And usually on a Friday night at 3 when they come out, and then have it ready by Monday. It's ever changing, and the staff from everybody in our organization is prepared to move and pivot and pick up the slack or change the cleaning methods, everything. So that itself is, if they got that done this year, it's amazing. But in addition to that, we had record attendance at Glencoe Beach and Watts Ice Center. Obviously, our community is looking to be outside more with the pandemic, and they have rediscovered our great assets that we have. And then there's still a very high demand for Children's Circle. We are still the go-to provider for full-day preschool. And with this community changing over and more young families coming in, we don't see an end to that either. And that's we know that's in part, that's totally because of our great administration down there with Jessica, and then our teachers who are just wonderful and dedicated, especially now. They are stepping up and they are working more hours than I care to think. So they're doing an amazing job down there. We also continue to advocate with our state and local lawmakers. And I think Chris has a little button on his phone right to the DNR office to talk to them weekly and to keep on advocating and keeping us front and center. And I continue to talk to our local legislators about grants, and they've really paid off. We have a total of over $4 million in grants that we've received this year. So that's on top of everything else. So I'm not going to read every single one of them, but things that really, if you look at, and I have pictures on the back of my wall, Duke, and that Connect Glencoe Trail that we finished. Sometimes I think, oh my God, that's been there forever, and it's not, and it's become such an asset. Our first ADA accessible water play feature in Duke Park, the trains, which no one has. And our continue to be our great programs. And so as we move forward, we're continuing to apply for OSLAG grants and just continue to repair our infrastructure and continue to be more efficient and effective throughout the district. So again, I'm not going to read it over, but please take the time to look at everything our team has done. They are an amazing group of people to work with, group of professionals. Everybody is, and I couldn't be more proud of what we've all accomplished together. So kudos to all of them. So I always like to say that at the beginning of the year, and as we go to set new goals for next year. So any questions on that? Okay, I think that's all I have then for that.
All right, Lisa, thank you. We will move on to action items. I entertain a motion to approve WB Olson as the construction manager for 3.25% of the total construction costs with a 0.85% for project liability insurance as presented.
So moved.
Can I
Second.
please?
Second, Carol?
Yep.
Carol. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Boren?
Yes.
Commissioner Kolbe?
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider?
Yes.
Commissioner Spain,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes, motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the lowest responsible bidder, Markham Construction of Elgin, Illinois, for base bid contract items 1 through 8 and 10 through 12, not to include railing replacement, contract item 9, for a total award of $352,240 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
That's not the total I remember, but I mean, I know we discussed it, but so that's for that's for the railing and the
No, you weren't at the last meeting. So the railing came in way too high, way over budget. And we're thinking because of pandemic prices. So we eliminated the railing from consideration right now. So this is for the pier.
Okay.
So Stephanie, we'd originally earmarked $35,000 for the railing and it came in at about 275,000. So when we had that conversation, we were kind of saying, okay, you know, we're willing to go 50, we're willing to go 60 for the operational efficiency of not having to paint. But I mean, to spend an entire playground on the railings was just, we felt like it was too much. So we recommended to the board, you know, the railings we have are structurally sound. We're going to have the contractor paint them. And it is possible that we could come back in the future and replace these railings at a later date without, you know, impacting our concrete surface.
Okay, and then did you guys discuss at the last meeting, like did we get any insurance payments on this yet? I know we were expecting maybe something.
We did, we received, I believe 55% up front. I think it's $62,900, something like that. And then once the project is completed, we're scheduled to receive another 50 some thousand, like 52,000, something like that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so it's about a quarter.
Is there anything else? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Commissioner Covey,
Yep.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Spain,
Yes.
President Brooks.
Yes, motion passes. Moving on to the next item, typically in committee, I get a sense of the consensus of opinion on a matter, and then it ends up on the agenda. And what I have learned is in a situation where nobody moves the motion, we don't have to act on this agenda item. Should it be, and I'm not suggesting it is, should it be a situation where we don't have enough backing? So a motion would be typically moved by somebody who's in favor of it, and then typically second to, although there's only 5 of us, so that's not really necessarily the way it always will be. But I'll just lay that out that I did not get a firm feeling of how the group felt after our last discussion. I'm sure people have digested it a little bit since then and may be ready to go. So that gets us to item C. I entertain a motion to approve the 2022 Aquatic Services Reciprocal Agreement between Northbrook and Glencoe Park Districts as presented.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All right. Is there further discussion since our last discussion on this matter?
I wasn't at the board meeting, so I just want to say that I support this for various reasons, but one, because our residents also benefit from the pool. And I don't think that, you know, we didn't have overcrowding at the beach last year. So I'm not concerned about that. I think it's good to maintain this relationship.
You know, I thought it was interesting. Someone had brought up at the prior meeting that realtors use this as a way to attract residents to Glencoe because we don't have a pool. And I actually brought this up with some people and they said that that was a factor when they moved to Glencoe, knowing that, oh, I could have access to Northbrook Pool at resident rates.
Well, interestingly, although I am not in strong favor of this, I was the one who brought that up because truly there is a real interesting pros cons column for me to look at. You know, it can go either way. I'm not strongly for it or strongly against it. I do think there is a significant equity issue with a community the size of Northbrook versus the size of Glencoe that's played out in the number of people that take advantage of the Northbrook opportunity versus the beach opportunity. I will also say that based on our surveys following our beach season, what we heard loud and clear from Glencoe residents, who we of course serve them, is that they really liked the strong presence of residents at the beach and the fact that it was not as crowded as it has been in the past. So I think all of those factors certainly are in the con column. What I would hope is that we would consider perhaps requesting of Northbrook that they consider additionally, since there is this equity issue, something else, such as perhaps resident rates at the dog park. Or no, that's not going to happen. Okay, well, it would be, I'm just trying to think of something. I mean, Michael came up with something last time, if I'm not mistaken, suggestion, trying to balance this out a little bit. It would be nice. I also don't know that we know what Northbrook's resident and non-resident rates are yet. They haven't published those. I looked for them myself. Bobby, I know you alluded to that last time. It would feel a little better for me. On the other hand, overall, I'm not strongly against it. It does serve a segment of our community, certainly. And as I've said, I think to Michael last time, we're going to have another year of data to look at. And then when we revisit this next year, we can look at the data and see how it plays out in dollars. So that's what I have to say. Michael, do you have anything to add?
I think it's going to be really hard to ever get something equitable with a town that's 5 to 6 times the size of Glencoe or 4 to 5 times the size of Glencoe. So you're always going to see an inequity. I mentioned last time, and I'll briefly say it for Stephanie's benefit here. I think you're more likely. I think this is more incremental revenue than it is a dilution cost. I think more people sign up for it from Northbrook that because of low cost, rather than people who are going to sign up anyway and we're losing that revenue. $50,000 or $60,000 is not a small sum, and you can do a lot with that money. So I agree with Stephanie that we didn't see overcrowding issues. I think in all the pandemic challenges that we've had and all the pandemic changes we've had with rules, I haven't seen any change from anyone about sort of the outside transmission rates. And so the beach is outside, there's enough space, this is incremental revenue. Unless the staff sees any reason to say no, I'm on Stephanie. I agree with Stephanie. I agree with Carol as well. I'd like to have access to a pool without having to invest in the infrastructure of a pool. So I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense to do it for this upcoming summer.
Art, would you like to add anything after your previous comments?
Yeah, I understand that COVID transmissions are relatively low outside. I understand the benefits of access to the pool in Northbrook. Yeah, I'm still just uncomfortable giving access, even though in the past there's been a low level. The optics to me just aren't good at the COVID levels being more than 11 times what they were when we first suspended this. So yeah, I still just personally, and I hear everybody else's perspective, but personally, I'm not comfortable with it.
Okay, if there is nothing more on this, if anyone.
I guess I just want to add one more comment in that I think it would be interesting to see what it's like this year and then in the future. I think since 2019, there's added competition for pools like Lifetime opening up, which is between Glencoe and Northbrook. And I think if we see a decreasing use of Glencoe residents of the Northbrook pool over time, it is something that we should reconsider.
And I'm sure Erin will do this, as she always does. But we have so many new residents, so advertising this if this goes through, advertising it to our new residents so that they're aware of it would help as well.
Lisa, can I confirm that the arrangement, the reciprocal arrangement will be exactly as it was 2 years ago, so that, the same access to lessons and everything, it's going to be the same. There's going to be no change on their side.
Correct. There's been no change. We're not changing anything except for obviously the amount, the fees. So same access.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Carol that this has to be looked at again next time. And this year is a good data point for us. So, very good. So, roll call vote, please.
Sure. Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Commissioner Kobe,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
No.
Commissioner Spain,
Yes.
President Brooks.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay. Is there any other business, Lisa?
Not at this time.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to go into executive session. That means that our visitors and staff will step out.
Jenny, can you go ahead and put everybody in the waiting room? And if people want to stay, when we come out of the executive session, we will re-enter you into the meeting at that time. We do not know how long it will take, and there is no action items being considered after we come out of the executive session.
That's right. After executive session, we will close out the meeting. So thank you, staff.
All right, so who's included? John needs to be included for just a little bit, and then he'll excuse himself.
Yes. Otherwise, just the board.
Okay, so you need the motion to, the board will now enter, and then I'll
Yes, we can
switch
do
the
that.
thing.
Yes,
All
yes. Thank you, Jenny. Yes, the board will now enter into closed session there where no action will be taken. I entertain a motion that pursuant to Section 5 ILCS 120/2 of the Open Meetings Act, the board will enter closed session to discuss personnel merit increases as mandated by Section 2.06 5 ILCS 120/2C1. Those present during executive session will include all commissioners, Lisa Shepherd and
John.
John Kutera.
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. Note the time, please, Lisa, and do a roll call vote.
10, Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Commissioner Kobe,
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider,
Yes.
Commissioner Spain,
Yes.
President Brooks. Okay.
Yes.
Jenny, can you let me know if anybody's still in the